Hello and welcome. This is Michelle with Paper Stamp Ink. Thanks for stopping by my channel today, where you'll receive tips, techniques, and tutorials to inspire you in your own paper crafting projects. So today we're going to go into another one of my series of tutorials I'm planning on beginning card making and stamping. I will link the playlist below so that you can check out other videos in that series as they come along. I have one already that has what you need to get started as far as basic tools and products. So today let's get into card bases and layers and what you need to know about those. I'm going to start with our standard card size that most card makers in the US do, and that is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card. So let's talk a little bit about the papers. This is Whisper White Thick. This cardstock comes in thick and Whisper White and vanilla, and this is my go-to often for bases. And then the other thing that I love is that our colored cardstock is a nice thick cardstock that works well for bases as well. Now, some of the other colored cardstocks you're going to find out there on the market are just too flimsy to hold up as a card base. Good for layering, but not so good for bases. You don't want a flippy floppy card. So let's go ahead and talk about two basic cuts for cards when you're doing your card bases. So the first one, we start with our 8 1/2 by 11 inch paper, and we cut it in the middle from the top to the bottom, and that is at a 4 1/4 inch mark. So I'm just gonna fold this up here at 4 1/4 inch. This leaves us 4 1/4 by 11, and we are going to score that at the halfway mark, which is 5 1/2. And now remember, the Stampin' Trimmer has the cutting blade and the scoring blade, so make sure you know which one you are using. And I always go over mine twice and fold those and bring in my bone folder, which I seem to have hidden somewhere on my desk here. There it is. It's usually close by, but sometimes gets a little buried. And I'm just going to give that a nice crease. So this card can be top folding or it can be side folding. So let's go ahead and talk about the other way you can cut your paper for your card base, and that is to cut it in half this direction. So we'll take the 11 inch side and we're going to cut at the 5 1/2 inch side. We're going to cut up, and then we're going to turn that, and we're going to then again score at the halfway mark, the midpoint, which is 4 1/4 on our 8 1/2 inch side. And give this a crease, and this is, again, can be a top folding or a side folding card. So these are your two standard cards that you're going to get, or card bases you're going to get from an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper. So you can get two of these from each of your sheets of paper, so you can end up getting a lot of bases. I tend to make multiple bases at a time and keep these in my stash. The same goes, I don't make quite as many of the colored ones, but if I do take a piece of colored paper and I make a base, I've got a half sheet left. So with that other half sheet, I will often go ahead and make another base, and I'll put it aside in a box where I keep those pieces for quick and easy card making. So these are your two base layers. And then our bases for your cardstock. Now let's talk about layers. So with the layering, you're going to get two bases out of one sheet of cardstock. You're going to get 4 layers out of one. So most standard base layers are going to be a 1/4 inch smaller, and that's probably the most common measurement that I see out there, is to give a nice little mat. So let's go ahead and start with that cut, and we're going to go at the 4 inch mark here on my trimmer. So I'm taking, it's 4¼ is the width here. I'm taking 1/4 inch off to make this 4 inches. And then our half of our 8½ by 11 is 5½. I'm going to go 1/4 inch in from there and cut this matting layer. So that's going to give us a nice little 1/8 of an inch border on all 4 sides of our card base in the matting, and allows us to get a little bit of extra dimension, more colors, and we can continue on matting things down at that 1/4 inch mark. And this is a good practice to use if you have any piece of cardstock or a piece that you have maybe cut designer series paper, which is the pattern paper, or maybe you've already stamped a sentiment and you want to mat it. Measuring that piece of paper and adding 1/4 of an inch onto it to get a back mat is a pretty standard dimension as well. So let's go, instead of 4 inches, we're going to go a smaller mat still. So I'm going to continue with my 1/4 inch measurements, and I'm using some different colors here just to make it a little bit easier to see. So I'm going in for my 4 inches to 3 3/4 inches. And I'm taking my 5 1/4 that we had for that fresh fig layer, and I'm coming in at 5 inches for that direction. So again, this is going to give us a nice matting for our layer. And continue on with those dimensions, and let's do one more. So I was at 3 1/4, I'm going to come in at 3 1/2. We were at 5, so I'm going to come in at 4 3/4. And that creates one more layer. So you can see how you can get a lot of beautiful colors on your card, a lot of dimension. I think the matting really makes them look professional. Can't get those lined up very well when I have my adhesives on. They'll line up a lot better. But think about when you go and you look at a piece of artwork in a store, the difference that the matting and the framing will make with that piece of artwork. And that's what we're doing with our card pieces. So this, again, 1/4 inch down in size on each 2 of the sides. You only want to do 2 of the sides. Will give you a 1/8 inch matting. Let's talk about some other layers, but let me bring this trimmer up closer to the camera so that you can see. And let's talk about the measurements on the trimmer, just so that you know where your marks are and what all these different little lines mean on this trimmer. Now, I'm talking about the Stampin' Up! Trimmer, so you may have a trimmer at home that is a little bit different, so you'll have to look at what marks you have. This one goes down to 1/16 of an inch. So some trimmers do not go down in that much detail. That's one of the things that I love. I like to have that ability, especially when I'm doing 3D projects, that 1/16 of an inch can come in extremely handy. So let's just look from our 1 inch mark here. You see this tallest line is our 1/2 inch mark. The next smallest line down is the 1/4 inch, so you can get 1, 2, 3, 4 cuts from that. Moving on down, the next size down is an 1/8 inch. So if you're not sure, if fractions are not your thing, think about how many of those you can get, and you'll know that's the 1/8 inch. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 8 of those, so that is our 1/8 inch mark. And then this little tiny one here is our 1/16 inch mark. So you can get 16 cuts out of an inch if you're going on that little tiny mark. And then this one is 1/16, the next one is 2/16. So you don't skip over if you're doing the 16ths. You don't go 1/16 and 2/16 and 3. For each of these, as you use the smaller dimensions, you're going to still count the next biggest one as well as you go over. So with the 1/4 inch or the 1/8 inch, we've got 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and 4/8, and so on. So I just want to take a moment and share with that. If you're familiar with all those dimensions, thanks for sticking with me while we went through that, but I know that for some people that can be a real struggle. So we talked about our card base is 4 1/4 inch, and we did that first one at 4 inches. So we took 1/4 of an inch off. I'm going to take 1/8 of an inch off this time around, and I am going to show you what that layer will look like. So we've got 4 1/8, and from our 5 1/2, if you can't remember those dimensions, you can always work backwards. So our 5 1/2, we're going to take 1/8 inch off, which is 5 3/8, and this is going to give us a really thin border around the card. So let's take a look at those side by side so that you can see the difference. So this is our 1/4 inch, and this is our 1/8 inch. So it all depends on the look you're going for with your project. I quite often like to layer a small border of black around things, or a darker colored cardstock often, especially if I've got a lot of busy pattern paper, designer series paper. I've done made my own designer series paper with a lot of stamping. I just find that little tiny border, making it 1/8 inch smaller, which gives us that 1/16 of an inch border, helps to break up those patterns so that they are more easily distinguished. They don't run into each other and make your eyes kind of crazy trying to figure out where one thing ends and one begins. So let's go one more, and let's go a little bit larger border. So sometimes I know there are people that like a nice thick border. So again, the 4 inch is our standard, 1/4 inch down. So we've got 4 1/4. We took 1/4 inch off for that first measurement. Let's take 2/4 or 1/2 of an inch off and go at 3 3/4. And 5 1/2 was our beginning dimension. Let's take 1/2 an inch off of that to get a 5 inch cut. And so as you can see, that's going to give you a nice wide border. So it's all about what you like, the looks that you have, and just take these dimensions and use them with whatever sizes you need. So, you know, thinking that taking how much you want to take off of each side, 1/8 an inch, 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, and you can vary these layers. You don't have to do one or the other. You can do a wider border and a thinner border. So let's do the, let's see, got it too thin of a piece there. Let's take this one, and let's do the 3 3/4. So that one is at the 3 3/4 by 5. And we can mix and match. So we've got, this is our 1/8 inch cut, and this is a 1/2 inch off. So, you know, we don't have to do the same amount of matting on each of the layers. You can mix that up and add more interest to your cards that way. So again, the standard size, you're going to get 4 matting pieces out of one 8.5 by 11 sheet, and you're going to get 2 bases out of that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I do love layering. I love adding those dimensions. I do want to caution you that adding too many of those can make your card require extra postage if you're going to be mailing those. So one thing you want to always check is this path here, or break in our trimmer, is 1/4 inch wide. And so when you have your envelope and all your embellishments, if it will pass through there, then it will mail with a regular stamp. Now that is assuming that there are not uneven dimensions on your card. If you have uneven dimensions, you've popped some things up, you've maybe used some rhinestones or sequins or pearls, You may need to pay to machine stamp those, and that is an extra charge, and that means that they're not machine stamp, sorry, hand cancel those, not machine cancel them. So that's going to add a little bit to your postage, and you just need to be aware, because you don't want to send something to someone that's beautiful and gorgeous, and either one, it goes through the machine and it tears because it's running through the machine and putting so much pressure on all of those layers, especially hard things like the pearls, or two, it gets to them and it requires extra postage, because, you know, that's not any fun to send a little bit of love through the mail and then have someone have to pay a little extra postage to get it. So those are some things to keep in mind. Now, a couple other sizes of cards that I want to discuss today, and you can obviously make these whatever sizes you want, you can get into. That is up to you, and when you're hand delivering them, play and have fun. You can do square cards. I just find this gets me the most out of my cardstock, so that's why I stick with this layer, or these dimensions, because I can get the most out of my cardstock, and I can send as many more cards that way as well. So the other dimension I want to talk about are these note cards. So Stampin' Up! Also sells note cards and envelopes in Whisper White or Very Vanilla, and these they are pre-scored and pre-cut for you, so you just have to fold them and burnish the edges. They come with the matching envelopes. These are much smaller than the standard size, as you'll see, but they are still the size that meets the U.S. Postal Service requirements for mailing. If you go any smaller than this, again, you'll have to pay extra postage. If you go too large, and you can go quite a bit larger than this, but if you go too large, you also have not fit in that standard letter dimensions. But this is as small as you can go without having to pay extra postage. These cards are 5 inches by 3 and let's see, what is that dimension again? 3.5. So 5 inches by 3.5. Okay, and you can get 20 of the cards and envelopes for just $6.50. So these are a great way to be able to produce a group of cards. I love these for little thank you cards especially. Then one other dimension to discuss is a 3x3 card. Let's see, I've got another piece of Whisper White thick here. And actually, let me find my thinner Whisper White, because when I do my 3x3 cards, I like to use the regular weight. I'm typically not expecting to put a ton of dimension on these cards. So a 3x3 card, you're just going to cut 3 inches by 6 inches. So remember, when you're coming with your card base size, one of those dimensions is always going to have to be doubled. Now with the 3x3, that's square, so that doesn't matter. But if you think, gee, I want to make a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card, if you cut 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch, you don't have anything to open. So you always need to double one of those dimensions. So in this case, we doubled the 4 1/4 inch side to have an 8.5 inch piece. So hope that's not making anybody's head spin, talking about all these numbers. We're going to score this at 3 inches and burnish. Now, you can use the envelope punch board to make your own envelopes for these, but we do also sell a set of 40 envelopes for $9.50, and these do only come in the Whisper White for the smaller envelopes, but these are great for attaching to a gift. So I will typically do these up often with birthday type sentiments or Christmas sentiments for attaching to gifts. They are also really nice to have just a cute little thank you. I mean, they're little, they're cute, and so they're nice to have a cute little thank you card to hand to somebody. But these are small, so you won't be posting these unless you do want to put them in a standard size envelope. and you can do that. And it's just a little smaller. So think about that. If you're doing anything too small, you'll just grab a little bit larger envelope and you can still put that through the mail. I hope that you found this helpful. I will continue putting out some videos talking about some of the basics of card making. Feel free to drop a comment below or send me an email at paperstampinc@gmail.com. If you have questions, I would love to answer those. If you're looking for a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I sure would appreciate the opportunity to provide you with those services as well. I hope that you have a great day. Make something creative and share it with someone you love.